So hello there friends. So today what we're going to be working on is rolling pleat. Usually for inserts, this here happened to come out of an old 1964 Ferrari, but this is kind of common in older cars, usually starting from like 1910s, 1920s, and so on. But really what it is I guess some people they called it tuck and roll. You've probably heard that term, right? But I've always known it as rolling pleat for the last 44 years that I've been doing this work. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So here we go. So some of the tools that we're going to be using is a square, a yardstick or straight edge, a white Sharpie marker for this application, and you'll find out why later, and a black Sharpie, which is what I prefer to use sometimes on light colors. But when you want accuracy and you want to be as close to perfect as you can, you'd probably want to use something like a pencil, like my old 1970s #2 pencil with a chewed off eraser, because that's what everybody did. They ate the erasers. Anyway, that's what we're going to be using. Hit the like button. Do it now. We're going to be making two different versions. Okay, I'm going to do the unpadded, which is like you saw in that Ferrari example, and I'm going to do a padded version. So this is the 1/4 inch scrim with a fabric backing for sewing. So the first one we're going to do is the unbacked. So let's do this first. Take your square. Make sure that your material is going to be square. And then after that, we're going to be using the same square to make sure that our lines are square. So let's go ahead and flip it over. And let's say that we want to draw, let's do, for simplicity, we'll do 3-inch pleats. So I'm going to take my 70s pencil, mark every 3 inches, 3, 6, 9, 12, okay? We'll do the same here on the bottom. 3, 6, 9, 12. It's up to you to decide how wide you want to go. You can go 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, 5 inch, doesn't matter, right? 8, okay. Now that we have that established, we're going to do 3-inch pleats. So what you can do is you can take your square, right, go ahead and follow your first line. If you notice, I'm drawing on the back side of the material, not the front side, because that's where we're going to be focusing. We're not even going to be looking at the top side, unless if you really want to. Okay, so I got those pleats there marked. Okay, so what we're going to do is take our material, we're going to fold it on that line. So just show your line right there, and it's always a good idea to crease it. If you crease it, it'll help you as you're sewing. See that right there? I put a slight crease in there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to sew this and leave about maybe up to 1/4 inch of allowance here on the edge. Seam allowance, I think that's what they call it. I've never had to use that word because I worked by myself all these years, for decades. So actually the commenters are filling me in on a lot of these new terms, for me anyway, like seam allowance. Okay, so this is now going to be technique number 784. What that is I'm going to be using the edge of my foot right here as a guide. So your machine might be slightly different, but that's what I do. But I think you get the idea. I'm going to use the edge of the foot right here with the edge of the material, and I'm going to use that as my guide. So I'm going to go ahead and lock my stitch just for the heck of it, even though it's a sample. Okay, now we're going to use that foot right there as the guide. And you know what about this kind of a seam is you don't have to be super critical. You could be off just a little bit and nobody would ever know it. I think on the next pleat I'll make that example. Okay. So that's our first one. So you can see now we're starting to get somewhere, right? Not bad. Okay, I'm going to show you what I meant by my earlier comment about not being so critical about sewing exactly even straight. Okay, I'm just folding my seam right there. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start sewing. And you know what, you got distracted, so whoops, you kind of went a little wide there. So you're sewing and you're sewing. Oh, you went a little narrow here. Oops, okay, let's try to get back on track, okay? So now, if you look at that stitch, I don't know if you can see it or not from where you are, but you can see it's not exactly straight, right? Here it gets wide and here it gets narrow. Okay, so this is the result. Ta-da! You can't even tell, right? You can't see it. Oh, by the way, ta-da! That's French for, no, that's English for voila, which is French. Okay. So anyway, that's our number 2. Let's just go ahead and continue. Because you know what? The more you do it, the better at it you're going to get. So you have to be doing something. So this time I'm going to just sew a straight one, okay? Alright. This one here went a little bit wider. And you can see that, and unless if you probably took your straight edge and measured probably even millimeters, you might see a millimeter or 2 difference between this one and this one, only because I sewed this one here wider. That's probably more like a 3/8 inch allowance right there. But I guess, you know, if you're doing a project, it's probably best to just stay consistent, right? So let's do this. Let's just stay consistent. Okay. I think that's the first serious one I've done so far. The other ones are like goof off, right? Okay, that one there was a serious one. Okay, so there we have it. And that's what it's going to look like on the back. And that's the way that Ferrari one was. Now let's do our padded sample. So we're going to flip it over, right? We're going to make our marks on the back. Let's go ahead and do this again. Let's do our 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12. You just take your straight edge. And this is the reason that I'm using the white Sharpie marker, that China marker. I told you that I would show you why I'm using the white. Of course, if this was a different color backing on the phone, I'd probably be using a different color. I guess that's probably where the permanent marker Sharpie would come in. But I have a black backing here, so I need to be able to see the line. There we are. So what is going to be different about this padded one is if we went back and folded that seam like we did last time and tried to crease it, it's going to be really hard to do because on the other side the vinyl is bunching up. Okay, so that's a problem. So that brings us to technique number 732. Jeez, I couldn't get that one out. Okay, technique number 732 is we have to make a crease by sewing a pleat. Okay, look at that. Now we have our fold without the bunching, right? So we've got our pleat sewn up and it's naturally going to fold now. So we can go back to our original plan and use the edge of the foot here as my guide on the edge of the material. I guess I should have used white thread for this one. But you guys already know what I'm doing because you're some of the smartest people around. Now look at that. Pretty nice, huh? Oh, we're supposed to be looking at the front. Okay, so that's the front now. That's what the front looks like. Look at that. So we're just going to go ahead and continue. Sew up the pleat. So if you're a pro out there and you just happen to be watching this video, put your experience down in the comments. I love hearing about your experiences. So now I'm going to do a super fine and see what happens. So I'm going to make a much smaller, maybe a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Ooh, that's tight. Look at that. Okay, but you know what? For the front, it's really going to look the same. Okay, so now, look at this one. Let's sew our pleat. And with this one, we're going to get distracted. Okay, so we're going to start sewing. Okay, so we're sewing. Oh, I got distracted. Oh, I'm going a little wide. Okay, back on track here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm sewing. Oh, got distracted. Oh, I'm going like super narrow now. Okay. So, with the padded one, I don't know if you can see it there, but we went wide here and narrow here. But what happens when we fold it out? Look at that. Can't even tell. So how forgiving is that? Right? It's like, how can you mess up? So if you ever wanted to have confidence doing something, try this, and you know what? It's going to boost your confidence. It doesn't matter. You can't screw it up. So what I did here is I actually changed the thread color to white. So that way you can see the white thread against this black background. Now look at that. Now you can see the white. That's what I'm talking about. So we got those 4 pleats done. And this is what they look like on the other side. Wouldn't that look nice on your custom street rod seat? Or your 1957 Chevy? Or who knows? Try it on a modern car. Start a new trend. Then you can be trending on TikTok and all that. Don't know what TikTok is personally, but some of you do. Now you can see the difference between the two. You see that? Both of these are actually 3-inch pleats. This is 3-inch and this is 3-inch. But this is relaxed and it's in its natural state, and that's why it kind of looks like that. So that's kind of what the 1920s cars would look like. On the 20s cars, they would have another fabric backing that's flat, and then what you would do is you take the cotton and you would stuff it into the channels right here, and when it would hold that shape like that. So I actually have a video about 1920s upholstery that you might find interesting if you find that in my channel. So this one here is the one with the foam backing, and you can see how it's laying a lot flatter. And some might even say a cleaner look. So one of the consequences of not being consistent on the way that you're sewing, like here's a big one, big fat one here, and here's a nice thin one, is there could be a variance if somebody actually took out one of these and started measuring millimeters. So let's take the first one as an example. I'm seeing like 62 millimeters between these two. Let's go to the next one. Oh, not too bad. 62, 63. We're only off 1 millimeter. Okay. Oh, 64 millimeters. So we're only off another millimeter. I didn't mean that to happen. I was thinking that it was going to be worse than that. Maybe if we check down here. Okay, 62. 62. Gosh, you can't screw up, can you? 63. Well, I tried to screw up as best as I could. But anyway, I guess I've seen them so bad where one pleat will be completely different from all the other pleats, like they just eyeballed them or something. But you know, we don't do that here, do we? We always take some kind of a measuring instrument and we always measure everything out. Okay, let's check this one out. So I'm going to stretch this here so that, well, I guess I can't measure it if I'm stretching, am I? That one there says 60, 59, 62. So, I mean, from here where I'm standing and I'm looking right down at it, I don't see much of a difference. So for your homework for today is to write down in the comments where you think that you can use this roll and pleat or tuck and roll on your next project, or a project that you would like to use it in. Would it be a boat? Would it be furniture? Would it be your car? Let me know, and I answer every comment. So anyway, like I was saying,